It just amazes me. You got a grown man who was adopted by white parents, which was a pretty big step for Caucasian parents to take on an African American child. And the reason I say that is because African Americans and Caucasians are literally two different cultures. And while our culture is being pinned to the mat, slammed, and accused of so many evil woes by the African American community, and I'm going to say it again, do not mistake African American community with Africa. They are not one and the same. I find it interesting that African Americans want to identify with being African, but none of them will move over there. None of them have absolutely anything in common with them except some late, long distance ago DNA. Make no bones about it. I have friends in Facebook from Zambia, Kenya, and Nigeria, and all of them speak 2 or 3 languages, have much more class and manners, and know how to dress and act a whole lot better than what you see going on in this lovely country. Colin Kaepernick is not somebody that I respect, and I said that on purpose. He's a baby. He had to take football where people came together of all walks of life and turn it into a political shitstorm. I don't respect that. I'm not a football guy. I could care less if football, the NBA, and Major League Baseball all disappeared from the scene. Sports are not important to me. And America's obsessed with them. But what bothers me is you had all races coming together in football. Kaepernick decided to be an obtuse individual, a privileged black person, mind you. Wanted to throw a tantrum at a football game and refused to stand for the flag. I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. This is typical of leftist liberals. We're going to run and spew all this crap out of our mouths, but he doesn't lead by example, hasn't to date. Spoiled, got lots of money. Let's see. Let's do this for fun. Hey Siri, what's Colin Kaepernick's net worth?
Colin Kaepernick's net worth was $20 million in 2022.
$20 million. Everybody's a racist. Now he's talking about the white folks that adopted him. Navel-gazing guy wants to just worship his blackness. Well, Colin, let me tell you something from my perspective. What I see all day, and I live in the deep, dirty South, that's what they call it. And I'm not impressed with the African-American community, nor should we be. What I see is a lot of men thinking they got the Pharaoh complex. I see an awful lot of drugs down here, an awful lot of drugs down here, doing it in front of their children, around their children, talking shit about my race, about their personal lives, their financial lives, their homes with tarps over the roof, crap all over the yards. And CNN and MSNBC and all the other alphabet soup, liberally biased networks will never talk about the reality of the fact that the highest crime stats are in guess which community. And now you got Kaepernick, a guy that's like so many African Americans, that when they don't get the attention that they think that they deserve, they start rattling their rattles and making a bunch of noise. It's like that kid banging on the high chair when you're in church trying to hear a sermon and some baby's going to suddenly decide to go, wah! This is old hat. Kaepernick's not getting enough attention. He likes to light fuses. Let's talk about him. $20 million. He had such a hard life, right? Do you see him moving to Africa? Seems to me that he became pretty successful under his folks. I don't believe for a minute that Kaepernick's parents were racist. Why would they raise a black child? There's kids I work with that are African American, special needs kids, and some of these kids aren't getting the care and love and attention that they are supposed to get from their parents. And we're going to leave it at that. And if somebody asked me, would you ever adopt these kids? I said, my gosh, that'd be a lot. Because I've lived 57 years, and I'm not afraid to say it. African American culture and Caucasian culture are not the same. We're being beat up. We're being demonized, vilified, and crucified by 13% of the US population. And this is all the media fixates on. Promoting blacks that don't deserve any attention at all, like Kaepernick. This is not a guy anybody should be talking about. This is that kid in the back of the class that's always acting up, has to get attention, and angry that not everybody thinks he's a rock star. I see childishness written all over this thing. And then you got Google and YouTube that censor the hell out of anything. You as a Caucasian are not allowed to say anything against a black person because you'll be dubbed a racist. But the blacks can run their mouth at us and my culture all freaking day. Kaepernick is an idiot. $20 million net worth. I'd like to know what his damn problem is. I'll tell you what, I'll trade you, Kaepernick. You give me the $20 million, I'll give you my house in a mostly black neighborhood, and you can get back to me. How about that? You want to do a trade up? I bet you wouldn't do this. And I'm going to say it again. If I had it to do over again, I wouldn't move into a predominantly black area in America at all. I would go to Kenya. I'd go to Zambia. I have friends over there. They've assured me that I would be fine. Why is it so dangerous with African Americans in the US, but I go to Zambia and be respected? I just find that interesting. That the British colonized Africa, and you don't have this hatred and contempt for the British the way African Americans who were only in slavery 80 years in this country. And they want to make that a big, giant crime. But you go into Egypt that had the Hebrews for 400 years. And Chinese were slaves. And Irish, myself, not me, but my heritage somewhere were slaves. Even in the part of the country I live in, they said that redheads were children of the devil. South US believes a lot of weird stuff. That's why it's the butt end of most jokes anywhere you go in the continental United States. The South is not known for being the classiest end of American geography. There's some good things in the South, but there's a lot of bad things too. And I'm not a Southern boy, but I'm proud of that fact. I identify more with the North. But is anybody getting tired of Kaepernick? He's just a complete crybaby. He fussed about the shoes that they made for women. Nike made shoes that had the 13 colonies on them. What is this guy's problem? Us Caucasians are not allowed to have a history. There was nothing racist about the 13 colonies. Oh, but blacks are saying colonization is racism. Blacks don't know their history, do they? They recycle and regurgitate Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King and their little entourage of American-based stars, but they ignore the fact that Africans sold Africans into slavery, Muslims, and you do not see when Ghana, the leader of Ghana, stood up in the 2020 riots and told blacks that they could move there, he'd give them, they were welcome. Nobody took him up on that. I had a discussion with a black woman at work one day, and I said, "Man, if you hate it so bad, why'd you stay here? Where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? I don't even know my connection." So you stay here and fuss and scream and yell about us. We did not do wrong in coming to this piece of real estate called America. The Pilgrims did not do wrong, and I don't care what critical race theory, revisionist history people have to say. There's truth and there's error. Kaepernick is a self-absorbed, self-serving individual who gives nothing to the good of this country. I could care less about this individual. I'm not impressed with LeBron or Oprah or Michelle or Whoopi. All of them make too much money. All of them are crybabies. And we got to hear all the time how my race is privileged. I don't see Oprah living like me. She bought a $90 million house. Not a house near ghetto condition that I've had to personally slave on myself to get it back to normal. I'm so sick of these people complaining about our race. It is all media-driven lies. And the media panders to these fools, which is owned by white elites who don't hang out with the black community, who don't live in a black neighborhood. That ought to tell everybody something right there. Michelle Obama says, "I don't understand why whites don't move to a black neighborhood." Gee, maybe you ought to get down and ask some of us why. I did a rare thing by doing what I did. And I'd never do it again. Real estate values go down, quality of life goes down, crime escalates. I have been laughed at and mocked when I go out into public. My hair, my glasses, if I wear my chain necklace, whatever. Come to find out, the African American community is not as open-minded and tolerant of other people that are different than them as I thought that they were supposed to be. Colin Kaepernick is irritating. Worth $20 million. What is his problem? Can I tell you something, Kaepernick? I'm glad I'm white. I'm glad I wasn't born black. Because I noticed something. You and you people are not allowed to think for yourselves. You have to follow a narrative. You're like a cult, a clique. Your own people say, "You're not black, you wouldn't understand." Well, let me tell you something, African American community. You don't understand us whites, and you don't even try to. You slam us, our music, our taste, our clothing, our everything. I hear it all day long in the workplace I work at. Black women have no problem saying, "Oh, that's a white thing. We don't do macaroni and cheese in a box. We actually take the time to make it." Well, Lottie freaking da. But let's talk about your credit. Let's talk about your behavior out there. Let's do a vis-a-vis comparison. Me moving into a black neighborhood and taking the time to fix up a house by myself with no help. Let me tell you the stories about some of the stuff I see right here that is unbelievable. I'm going to waste video time with all that. The evidence is out there for all to see. Lori Lightfoot loses re-election in Chicago. Thank God. I don't know why they didn't throw her out of there. Saying she refused to meet with white people, white reporters. The state of Illinois should have removed her just on that statement alone. Black on black violence escalated to the highest levels under that crazy woman's leadership in Chicago. She, who supported the Black Lives Matters movement, had done nothing to protect her own people. And she's more worried about Abbott shuttling illegals around to make a point to the Democrats. And you got a group of people who were 80 years slaves in this country, not the ones living, of course, are going to vote for the party that kept them there to begin with. What part of I am dumb do you not understand? You got Asians in the country. You got Hispanics. You got Hmong. You got people from Africa. Do you hear them beating on their drums the way these guys do? No. Like I said before, 13% of the U.S. population is going to wag the dog. We got to kowtow to that 13%. Why? I have benefited from every culture out there, including some African Americans. But let me tell you something. African Americans do not make anything that I need or depend on. Nothing. They've brought nothing to the table that is good that I can tangibly grab onto. And they want to slam our race to the mat. They want to talk about us, disrespect us, and go on, and the media gives them the damn stage to do it. This son of a you-know-what is worth $20 million. You got a lot of choices, buddy. You can go get residency in a number of countries, but you want to stay here and fuss. Let me tell you something, Kaepernick. If I had a fraction of your money, I'd leave this country. And I'd leave it because we got a media that caters to garbage like you. And I said it. I don't respect you. I don't need to. I'm white. You wouldn't understand. I'm Caucasian. I'm Irish. You wouldn't understand. I'm not like black people. And I'm proud of that fact because I think for myself. I don't follow a narrative. I don't follow a herd mentality. You got people like Candace Owens and others that stood up and left that foolishness, and a black community demonizes the hell out of them. The blacks are not open-minded. I am more open-minded and diverse than Kaepernick ever will be. Ever. I have gotten out of my comfort zone all my life. And I'm certainly not in my comfort zone here. I've questioned moving here again and again and again. I don't need to say over and over, I'm not racist. I don't need to say that I have friends that are blacks. I don't need to tell anybody. I don't need to prove a damn thing. Why does the media give a stage to a loser who's made financial profits $20 million? And now he's saying horrible things about his parents. Kaepernick, I just got one thing to throw to you. Why did you have to be adopted by Caucasians if blackness is so fucking wonderful? You want to answer that? You want to tell me why I deal with children that aren't getting bathed and washed by their own parents that have 10 kids and busted shit all over the yard and blinds torn up and kids that smell like BO and butt and who knows what? But the mother will come out the house with the $300 hair and her nails done. I'm getting tired about this race talking about mine because I see stuff every day that just makes me shake my head. There is nothing in the African American community within the continental U.S. that I am even remotely envious or desirous of. And I've been very bold. I'm not a fan of a lot of Caucasians myself. And that's a whole nother series of videos. I've tried to find myself for 50 some odd years. And I find that America's in bad shape. I feel like I'd do better in a foreign country than I would here. I feel like I am a foreigner in my own country. And the media doesn't talk about people like us. And there's some of us out there. Women don't date us. Good looking, slender women don't date us. I'm a homeowner. I go to work every day. I pay my bills. I'm not rich. I never will be. And you got some bloody fool fussing about how hard his damn life was. This man did not offer to work for the police department and take a sabbatical from the NFL. He decides to bitch about the American police department, saying there's so much systemic racism in it, but he did nothing to stop it. Nothing to get on the inside and find out what really goes on. That cops have to deal with more danger from their community than a lot of others. Did Kaepernick ever bother to do the study and find out how many cops were killed at the hands of black people when the cops followed protocol and did their job to the letter? Kaepernick doesn't care. And it makes me sick. You can't have this discussion with the black people here. They follow the CNN narrative to the letter. I see so many black boys going up under bombastic, domineering black women. And they meet me and see that I'm nice and I'm caring. Little black boys who call me Dada. Kaepernick acts like a little girl complaining all the time about all his little boo-boos. He's privileged as heck, way more than I am. So is Oprah. So is Michelle. So is Whippy. And they always talk about how bad they had it. Any thinking person with a brain that functions and works knows who the privileged ones are. And it sure isn't me. And it sure isn't most of the people listening to this. What I see in African American culture is they celebrate evildoers. They celebrate lawlessness. They want to pick at anything a white person does. They want to strain at gnats in the Caucasian community while swallowing camels in their own. I don't respect Colin Kaepernick. I don't respect him at all. The guy is not a good human being. $20 million, a life of privilege. And we got to be beaten and slammed by the media and contrasted to a clown like him. That Nike had to stop producing these cute little shoes for women because Kaepernick got offended. Well, I'm offended by him. Can we remove him? But that's not what the media is doing. They're putting everybody that offends anybody's natural senses today with their rude and inconsiderate behavior and putting them on a pedestal while lambasting honest, hardworking citizens who really don't think about racial issues, but it's jammed in our face like a stick in the nose every day. And white people are forced to either go along with this crap or blow their backs up and say, Colin Kaepernick brings nothing positive to the table, folks. He hasn't. He can't. He won't. He doesn't model anything but a life of spoiled brat privilege. Is anybody else with me on that? Don't you wish he'd just go away? $20 million, folks. And he's got to whine and fuss and demand attention. Tell me there isn't something wrong mentally with this guy. If I had $20 million, I would consider that a positive. There's somebody I go see in Thailand. There's some people I'd like to visit, Zambia, Kenya. But I'd find plenty to do. And I went through a set of parents that adopted me. My mother was abusive, and I'm not making that up. I could sit here and divulge all that. But if I was on the national scene like this clown was, I'm not going to sit there and shame my parents on the national level. Somebody say, well, you do it on YouTube. I don't shame them. I'm just telling the truth. That they did adopt me, that I had all my needs met as far as clothing and all that, but there wasn't love in that home. My mother was impatient with me and didn't know how to raise boys and never was able to say, I'm sorry. I don't understand what Kaepernick's problem is. They took the time to step out of their comfort zone and adopt a black child. Why did Kaepernick need to be adopted? His blackness is so wonderful. Where were his parents? And where are the parents of so many kids that are in their lives but not in their lives? Don't give them proper bathing, love. I've got so much more to say on this, but not today. Is it just me? Or is anybody tired of listening to this clown? Dude, take your $20 million and go to Africa or something. But I noticed something. I've been around enough people. I've met African people who move over here. They do not correlate into the African American community at all. African people have told me, man, these African American people are mean and nasty. I said, yeah, they're not like you. I met real Christian women from Nigeria and Africa that were godly, gracious, very kind. And you meet these so-called African Christian women here, they vote for a party that's killed 61 million children. They vote for a party that condones just about everything that God says, no, you cannot do. I know a Christian woman I work with, black. She's not a submissive woman. She's not gentle in spirit. She's not meek. She's not humble. She's bombast, will demand her way or else. A lot of self-centeredness there, a lot of immaturity there. Snaps her gum. And you say, man, could you please stop that? And no, she won't. 62 years old, snapping her gum. And she makes it a point on occasion to say, that's a white thing, and we don't do that. Can I tell you something? I'm not the one building these walls, but you are. I like the 80s hair bands music. I like what I grew up on. And the more I live in this community, I find myself going back to the things that were positives for me. None of these black people today went through what the 80 years of slavery did. None of them. And they're more angry and more self-righteous, whining and fussing, saying that we're privileged, they're not. Come where I live and watch what they do and get away with. They can abuse their children and still get away with it. Still. You got a white kid that gets a mark on his face, a kid, and you turn that in, there's a white person who's going to go to jail for that. But you got a black kid whose mother tore his behind and hit him across the face and left a scar right here. I could talk on and on about what I work with, what I see, and say, yeah, this community over here, they try to tell me that the cops will treat me different than them. And that's a lie. I stay out of the radar of the police because I don't particularly like the police and their ego and their mentality. But I support law enforcement in the context of trying to keep lawlessness at bay. But I noticed something. Just get in your car and go anywhere in America. Most Americans can't even follow basic traffic laws. So we're not a righteous nation, not on any level. But Kaepernick, I'm getting tired of him. I'll trade him. I'll give you what little bit I have, and you can have my house. I'll sign it over to you, and you sign the $20 million to me after taxes, and we can write each other and let each other know how we're doing. This is what I don't like about folks like him. Colin Kaepernick is nothing more than a racist. And he gets a stage to beat on his racist anti-white drum every chance he gets. Took football, where people coming together to watch a sport, and wanted to make it into a racial dividing point. That's not okay. That's not tact. That's not professional. And if he had taken time off to go work for the police department, go through the police academy, and say, I'm going to get on the inside and find out what I see, I might have respected him. In fact, I would have respected him. I would have said, you know what? That's awesome. That's cool. At least he's putting feet to his view. And this is a problem I have with the Democrats. They don't model a damn thing. All they leave is a debris trail of destruction and crime. And, look at what they've done to our economy. Look at what they continue to do. And Kaepernick, privileged like nobody's business. Got $20 million and still can't stop fussing and beating on his racist anti-Caucasian drum. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of listening to this guy. What pacifier can we give him that he'll just go away? I really want to know. People like him are not happy unless they're sowing discord. I'm going to say it again. You give me your income, dude. I'm not going to bitch about this country. I'll leave. I will leave. What is interesting to watch with the African American community is they're not making a migration to Africa. And I would. I prefer Asia myself. But if I could have a quiet and good life and good friends, and the possibility of a wife in Africa, why not? I'm not afraid to live in Kenya. I'm not afraid to live in Zambia. But here in the US, moving into an all-black community, yeah, I'm not going to take a walk in quite a few neighborhoods. I don't even walk in mine. Why would I? Let that sink in. Kaepernick is a privileged, spoiled BRAT. He's racist. He wants to put his blackness above everybody else. Our Constitution said that all men are created equal. And the African Americans want to scream that our forefathers were racist. They were the ones that said all men are created equal. Slavery was allowed in a lot of countries, and America is no more guilty than any other, including Africa. And there were Africans in the US that had slaves themselves, something that the so-called well-informed African-American community doesn't want to talk about. The African-American community doesn't want to talk about the fact that there were whites that had slaves, and the black people actually profited from being slaves because they got an education, they were allowed to marry their wives, they weren't abused, and the blacks respected their white slave owners. That some slavery is not bad. That if a rich man wanted me to be a slave of him and his family, where they gave me a guest cottage for the rest of my life and paid me good money to take care of certain factors or business of their estate, I'm in. That takes a lot of stress off of me. They provided me with health insurance and provided me with a living, and I could enjoy a quality of life. I'll be a slave. We hear the stories of excessive abuse. We hear the stories of Democrats who dominated the South at one time with their tobacco and cotton places. And guess what the Democrats are doing to this day? They're the head of just about every major corporation, reeling in the money, and you got these clowns that want to complain about Donald Trump. Folks, the social media oligarchs, Zuckerberg's, all of these clowns, all of them, they're way more richer than the Republicans are. And they're taking away our right to free speech. They're censoring and jailing people on Facebook, removing videos. Google does it all the time. But then you got a death threat video of me on there on YouTube that they refuse to take down. I'll tell you who the privileged people are. It's lawless, anti-American, anti-white, anti-male, anti-God's values. Those are the privileged ones. They can do and say whatever the hell they want and make big potfuls of money. And if America is so bad, Kaepernick, why is it that a nation that was started by white people, that you got people from Africa and Asia and Europe and the Soviet, what used to be the Soviet Union, they want to move here? If we're so bad, why do people from all around the globe want to become an American? You see, if you turn off CNN and you stop listening to a crybaby, you'll actually ascertain what is truth. That even though our country is not the greatest place right now, people still want to come here. But then you got people who hate our race, hate our ways, but they want to stay here and fuss with $20 million in their bank account. I cannot make sense of that. Kaepernick could go get residency in Kenya, Zambia, Nigeria, and any host of countries and never have to deal with this so-called injustice again. But they don't. They want to stay here and wreck it for the rest of us. Nancy Pelosi's an old bag in politics. She's rich. Why is she bitching and fussing all the time? Why doesn't she go away and enjoy her money and go have Mai Tais and pina coladas on an island? If I had the money they had, you think I'm going to sit there and work in D.C.? You think I'm going to fuss and moan like Kaepernick did? Man, I'm out of here. I'd still make videos, but boy, they'd sure change. You don't need a political science degree. You don't need to be, you don't need to do a hardcore class in Afrocentricism. You can just watch it yourself. And when I say Afrocentric, that coupling of words tells you what it's all about. It's always about them, their music, their culture. They drag this crap in front of the kids year after year. Rosa Parks, Rosa Parks, Rosa Parks. Okay, she didn't want to sit in the back of the bus. All right, yeah, but that's not a problem today. Blacks can sit anywhere they want. They can become a president, a senator, a congressional leader, head of the Air Force, head of a corporation. I just don't get it. And they want to talk about police brutality. Let's talk about the real police brutality the black community's done to the police in the U.S. It's funny how the CNN ignores that fact. A lot of cops have been killed at the hands of blacks. Cops who were doing their job that had no racism in them. Did the black community march about that? Did the black males, did Kaepernick march about what black men do to black women? Let's stop right there, and I'm going to say it again. African-American men are the worst to their women out of all ethnicities in the continental United States. Love them and leave them with children. They end up in the projects. They end up on Section 8. They end up looking for EBT cards and stuff while the men can go around thinking they're a damn stallion and got the Pharaoh complex. And then a white boy looks at them and they're sizing them up and want to kill them. Isn't that awesome? Kaepernick doesn't talk about the real problems that need to be addressed by him and his own skin color. I'm sick of people like that. Is he investing $20 million into his own community to make them better? Navel-gazing idiot, self-centered narcissist. Boom, there you go. And the media is so juvenile and so immature that they want to put this clown on a pedestal. This is the same damn thing that's gone on since I came into the world in the 60s. Blacks not getting enough attention. Got to shake their rattles. Everybody's a racist. By the way, there is no crime in the U.S. about being racist. Did you know that? You don't have to love a skin color or an ethnic group. You don't. You just cannot commit hate crimes. So even if everybody's so racist, you're never going to change what's in here. Any of you. If blacks don't like whites, we ain't going to change that. If somebody doesn't like an Asian or a Hispanic or me, like I'm going to change that. I started kicking everybody I know in my workplace out of Facebook because they harbor beliefs about my race. I said, man, if they're believing this stuff, these aren't friends. They're an enemy. Get them out. I have tried to build bridges to the black community. They're not building them to me. If anything, they're blowing them all up on a daily basis in the media. If Kaepernick was raised by his own people, would he be worth $20 million? There's something to think about. Probably not. I'm sorry. I'm Irish. I'm Irish American. I'm not into Oprah. I'm not into Michelle. I'm not into Whoopi. I'm not into Maxine Waters. I'm not into your who's who of the black genre. They aren't important to me. They're not making my life better. They're not working for the good of all peoples. The founding fathers were the ones that said that God has given us certain inalienable rights, that all men were created equal. And blacks will always come back with a comeback. Oh, but they had slaves because it was legal. And some of those slave owners treated black people without abuse, but gave them an education, paid them fair money, gave them a house to live in with their wife and children. But that's not ever discussed. You got more blacks in the U.S. now than there ever was during the slave days. And out of the percentage of 13% of the U.S. population is African American, I would say that a larger percentage of blacks in that 13% far exceed the number of people slaves back in the heyday. And a lot of those are causing more trouble today for everybody than was caused for them back in slave days. We don't owe them money. We don't owe them reparations. The damage that they've done to businesses and society and the criminal justice system and the cost of the American taxpayers, they've blown their chance for that. And why should we pay people like Kaepernick and this generation reparations? They didn't pick cotton. They weren't picking tobacco. This is what I don't get. Why do we give them something when none of these people went through that? That's crazy. But our media is of the devil today. Our media loves the shitstorm. The media, the journalists, mostly white elites that live in the Hamptons and, the protected gated communities. They're whisked, the limousine liberals that get to fly first class. They can report and they can stir up the pot and they can walk away when they've ignited the can of gas to their idyllic little communities and have a nice sleep. They're not living in the hood. They're not living down there up close and personal, all this mess that they're creating. They're doing nothing to solve the problem of poverty within the Black community, irresponsibility in the Black community, mostly by 75% of African-American men just cheat and screw over their lovers. Then the Black women are the ones, probably more than any other women in our society. Black women are more oppressed by their own Black males in America than anybody else. So I don't know why the Black women aren't getting on their high horse and standing up loudly and talking about their men, but they're talking about us. But some of us white men are willing to marry them and give them a different life. And guess what I find? They don't want that. There's been a few Black girls I'm interested in. Their credit's a mess. Their life's a mess. They got 3 and 4 children. And the exes, some of them have 3, 4 children with 3 or 4 fathers. None of them are paying child support. I've actually had an interest in a woman who I thought was soft-spoken and pretty, but her life's a disaster, a Black woman. But she keeps going back to the pig trough of dealing with men that love her and leave her and love her and leave her. Move in, take advantage of her, and then move on. Kaepernick might want to spend more time on that. And the reason that the police and the Blacks constantly come together is because of that factor right there. Because of the fact that so many Black men think they're the Pharaoh stallion, roll in, smooth operator with these women and take off. That's the truth. You want to solve the problem in this country? Start going after these African-American men that love their women and leave them. And then you got the quintessential, stereotypical angry Black woman fighting for her rights for the rest of her life. And she directs all that towards my race. We didn't do that to them. We did not do that to them. It's amazing how loyal Black women are to their own race when their own race kicks them in the crotch again and again and again and again and again. This is not something CNN and the liberal news alphabet soup networks are going to talk about because they're not interested in problem solving. They're interested in rabble rousing and pot stirring, and they don't care if our lives burn to the ground. But let this angry Black dynamic go up into those neighborhoods, Martha's Vineyard, the Hamptons, and all the gated media mogul communities. Watch their tune change real quick. They didn't want the illegals in Martha's Vineyard. No, folks. I've worked with children. I drove school buses. I no longer do that. But I still work with kids in a different capacity. The African-American community is leaving a debris trail all across this land. And they want to sit here and tell me that I'm racist and privileged. Out of all the ethnic groups in the United States, that group of people is a tax burden on the society. With all the women getting food stamps, EBT cards, housing, medical, and all the different things, and then the criminal justice system trying to deal with these wonderful African-American men that are not modeling a damn good thing with these boys that are being grown up by domineering, angry black women. And you got black women, black men growing up under these homes that they never got the tools to become a man. And you got emotionally driven logic black males being raised dominantly by dominant women, yelling and screaming at them all the time. And when they have a problem, how do they solve it? With a gun or with their fists? They don't learn how to agree to disagree. A white guy goes up and says, "Hey, can you turn your music down?" And he's going to get shot or beat up. I've talked about emotionally driven logic as a hallmark of women. When most of these women are raising these black boys and they're yelling and screaming at them all the time, that's not a loving environment. And blacks down here where I live said, "I will tear up that kid's behind. And if they put me in jail, I don't care." And there's a lot of abuse in the black community, folks. A lot. Look at Baltimore. Look at when they have black leadership at the helm. Yeah, Baltimore's really improving. A lot of black mayors and leaders down there, right? Lori Lightfoot in Chicago, she's made black safer, right? Folks, I'm going to tell you something. When white conservatives are in charge, they're going to find a way to stop this bullshit that goes on in Chicago. Let that sink in. Colin Kaepernick is spoiled, entitled, and privileged. Why would anybody listen to him? That is beyond my comprehension.